Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my favorite films of 2017 list. This has actually been a pretty good year for me. I'm very excited to talk about this. This is the first year where I've actively tried to go and seek out new movies in the theaters. I have not seen every single film that has come out this year. I've also seen a very small amount of films. I've usually seeked out certain movies. If there were bad films in the theaters, I didn't just go out to the theater and see what I was missing. So, it's a short list, and it's ordered in my personal favorites of the year. To start off, I'm going to introduce a few honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list. Split and Logan. Split is a very good psychological thriller with a fantastic performance by James McAvoy. I think the performance really picks up the movie, and I think M. Night Shyamalan does a very good job in this film with hinting and revealing certain things. Overall, it was a really good time in the theater, and it was great to watch this with an audience, especially towards the end. Logan is a movie that I don't have a connection really to the character because I never really watched any of the X-Men films. The only ones I've seen are The Last Stand and First Class. And I haven't even read Old Man Logan, the graphic novel. So watching this movie, I was really impressed with how well this film doesn't rely on those old films. It helps, but it doesn't rely on them. Hugh Jackman gives a fantastic performance. Patrick Stewart gives, I think, an even better one. And Daphne Keene's performance as Laura sets the groundwork for a potentially amazing character. Let's get into the list. At number 5, War for the Planet of the Apes. Before I saw this film, I really didn't have any interest in this franchise. I had heard good things about this movie, so I decided to go back and see the original two films, Rise and Dawn. And I'm very glad I did. It wasn't only incredible to see the evolution of the motion capture work and the visual effects with this trilogy, it was fantastic to see the overall arc that Caesar, played fantastically by Andy Serkis, goes through in this movie. It's a fully realized character. This is my personal favorite of the trilogy. Mostly because we spend most of our time with the apes, as opposed to the human characters, which throughout the trilogy have been the worst characters and the weaker parts of the films. With a little exception to Woody Harrelson in this movie, who's wonderful. What's really great too is the references. They are organically given to us, and we can see what their actual use is in this film, as opposed to them just calling back to it from the classic movie. My only problem with this movie, I don't think it stands alone as well as Dawn does. It requires you to go back and see those other films to really emotionally get invested with these characters. But overall, this movie made me really glad that I went back and visited a franchise that I didn't even know I had any interest in. At number 4, we have Get Out. Jordan Peele has created one of the best horror films of the year, if not of the decade. But this isn't just a very frightening movie, this is also a really funny movie. And I think it's because Jordan Peele is very direct with the social commentary and what minorities, particularly black people, have to deal with in certain social situations. But it isn't just the writing and the directing that make this a wonderful film, it's also the performances from the entire cast, especially in the lead role, Daniel Kaluuya. And personally, I feel really great that this movie was such a success, and that people were gravitating towards a film like this with this kind of social commentary and subject matter. I actually had to spend a lot of time thinking about what the order was for these next two films, and they're both fantastic movies in their quality and their filmmaking. And upon realizing a few key points, I made my decision. At number 3, I've put Dunkirk. And before I start talking about the film, I want to just thank my dad and also a good family friend of ours, Neil. He told me about how his uncle actually went to Dunkirk and how they had to rush off of the beaches so fast that they only had about 3 rifles that were working with them. And that was such a fascinating story. And knowing that, and when I was sitting next to Neil, and as soon as the first frame comes down, we see the Nazi propaganda showing the Blitzkrieg going to come and take the Allied soldiers. And the minute I heard Neil say, "Oh wow," I knew this was going to be an amazing film. And it was. Christopher Nolan has directed one of the best war films I've ever seen. The biggest criticism I've heard about this movie is that it doesn't have any main characters. That there's no protagonist whose goal we're supposed to follow, and an antagonist who's trying to get in the way of that goal. The protagonists in this movie are the Allied soldiers. The antagonists are the Nazis. The Allied soldiers are trying to get off the beach. The Nazis are trying to kill them. But Christopher Nolan makes it so much more than that. Every single frame in this movie tells a story and tells us what everyone is going through, what they are seeing, how they feel. That is wonderful visual storytelling. The way Christopher Nolan disjoints this film also works to the film's advantage, because that way we can pay attention more and notice, where are the planes, where are the boats, where are the soldiers, are they any closer to getting home, or are they still being pushed back? The tension and the suspense in this film have you until the credits roll, and that's mostly due to the amazing sound design, from the ticking of a stopwatch clock informing us that time is a factor to this evacuation, to the screaming, howling sounds of a German bomber coming down onto the Allied soldiers. When I saw this movie twice, my heart was racing for a full hour. I had to settle down. I couldn't go to sleep. I was just pacing around the house because this movie was so emotionally impactful. This is one of the best technically made films ever. No main characters required. My number 2 film of the year is Blade Runner 2049. Like Dunkirk, it hooked me from the very first frame. And like Dunkirk, it is a technical masterpiece. But unlike Dunkirk, I didn't immediately love it. I had questions. I didn't have questions when I saw Dunkirk. In fact, I saw both of these films twice. And when I went to go see Dunkirk, I was just there to feel the emotion that I felt the first time, and to go back and to appreciate it. But when I went to go see Blade Runner, I went to challenge it. And I wanted it to challenge me a second time. I wanted to see if it answered the questions I had. Not only did it answer the questions that I had, but it actually helped me discover things that I never noticed the first time. Denis Villeneuve proves, without a doubt, that he is one of the greatest visionaries in directing today. This is him at the height of his powers, as is Roger Deakins. His cinematography is breathtaking. The score, how it calls back to the original film, but also has its own unique style, is wonderful. And Ryan Gosling, my God, he gives his absolute best performance in this movie. I think that he is one of the most consistently strong actors working in Hollywood today. And this film is proof of that. And Harrison Ford gives a performance that knocks the performance from the original film out of the water. It is miles ahead of what he did in the first film. And it's also one of the best return performances I've ever seen from an actor. What I love about this movie is that it puts to rest the idea that fan theories are the questions that need answering. Like, oh, is Deckard a replicant? That's not the question that needs answering. The question that this film raises is, does it matter? And it asks, not what are we, but what is our purpose? It also has my favorite scene in any movie that I've seen this year, the conversation between Officer K and the Dreammaker. It's a beautiful scene, and it crescendos so spectacularly, and it's some of the best acting I've ever seen. It's also what I consider to be the most important scene in the film. A little break from the video to thank my awesome brother Noah for giving me this amazing Christmas gift. Well, I've praised Dunkirk and Blade Runner. You might be wondering, what is my favorite film of the year? Well, it's Lady Bird. You might be asking yourself, why is it Lady Bird? I mean, you just said that these other two films are like so perfectly technically made. And yeah, Lady Bird is not a technical masterpiece in the way of sound design and gorgeous groundbreaking cinematography and artistic design and set making. So why is this your favorite film of the year? Because it's one of the best written films I've ever seen. Everything, every single moment in this movie has a purpose. This is an emotionally driven film. What is so wonderful is to see those moments where there's casual conversation and little moments of humor, and suddenly those moments turn into rage-fueled arguments. We understand these characters too. We understand why Lady Bird, played by Saoirse Ronan, wants to be someone else and wants to move out of her hometown. She wants to have something more in life, and she doesn't feel like there's enough for her here. But it's also a movie where we understand her mother, played by Laurie Metcalf, who wants her to stay close, and we understand why she wants her to stay close. Greta Gerwig directed the hell out of this movie, and she wrote the hell out of this movie. This is a movie about young people trying to find themselves and trying to understand what life has to offer, and also about an older generation of people who are trying to understand the younger generation and trying to make them happy, but also trying to be realistic. This is a film about learning from the mistakes that we make and learning from the people that we surround ourselves with. And it's also about the consequences of our actions. Not them being either really bad or really good, but it's a mixture of the two. Of being good, bad, okay, and seeing how those consequences shape us in the future. It's also a movie that, at its core, is a love story, a familial love story, between a daughter and a mother. Saoirse Ronan and Laurie Metcalf give my favorite performances of the year, not because of any particular scene, but because they champion Greta Gerwig's writing. They aren't selfish. They don't say, look at me act, look at me portray this character that I'm creating. Look at this character that this person's created. The entire cast is like that. The entire cast champions the writing, and they are fully realized characters. You care about them, you despise them, but you love them at the same time. Overall, though, this is just a nice movie. And it's my favorite film of 2017. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Please leave a comment down below about your favorite film of 2017. And as always, take care. Have a happy new year.